The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everybody. My name is John Skees, and I am the Director of Media for TAPS. Thank you for joining us today for this Cheer webinar. We're going to get started in just a couple of minutes, but first I've got some housekeeping items that I'd like to cover. First and foremost, this webinar is being recorded, and that recording will be made available on the TAPS YouTube page later this afternoon. You can find that page at youtube.com/tapsbiz. There's also going to be a link that's sent to you in the follow-up email that you'll get about an hour after this webinar concludes. So if there's anybody on your campus that needs to hear this information but can't be with us today, just send that on to them. Second, if you have any questions, please use the questions feature on the GoToWebinar interface. We will try to answer those as we go through the presentation. But if we don't get to yours right away, don't worry about it. There is a question and answer period at the end of the presentation, so we'll try to catch up on all our questions there. But if we don't have time to get to your question, or if it's just too detailed, too in the weeds for us to address appropriately in this venue, go ahead and send us an email, info@taps.biz, after the webinar is over, and we will get you an answer to all of your questions. But yeah, just use that interface as we go, and we're going to be keeping an eye on that. Third, I'm working from home. Some of us are in the office. Some of us are kind of all over the place. So if you hear dogs barking or children screaming, I apologize for that. But I am joined today by Brian Bunselmeyer, the TAPS Executive Director, Robert Huckabee, our Director of Compliance, Steve Perdome, our Associate Director. We've also got Will Dixon from the TAPS office. He's in there helping us on the keyboard today. Vina Williams, our Fine Art Director, could not be with us today. We apologize for that. But again, we'll get to... We'll see if we can get that sorted out a little bit later on. Before I hand it over to Robert, I've got a quick poll for everybody. We would just like to know who is with us today. If you are a athletic or fine arts director, if you're a head coach, assistant coach, or if you're another staff member, or if you're not a staff member at a TAPS school, if you could just let us know real quick who's with us today. Looks like mostly head coaches. Good morning and welcome. We're at about 75% voted. I'll give this a few more seconds. All right, I'm going to close that poll. Thank you, folks, for letting us know. And I'm going to hand it over to Robert.
All right, John, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Looks like we've got a good group here with us this morning. What we want to try to do is just walk through a presentation, present some information to you, kind of where we've been the last couple of months, where we find ourselves now, and then what it looks like throughout the summer, and then moving into our competitions in the fall. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Brian, our Executive Director, for some opening comments.
Thank you all for joining us here today. It's good to have folks listening and participating as we go forward. I got to confess to most people that I'm not real good at the social distancing thing, so it's good to see eyeballs to eyeballs here in the office, and it's also good to catch up through the webinars. As we are transferring from the 2019-20 school year to the 2020 school year, we know that we all face challenges that we didn't face last year or ever before, and we hope that we can answer a few questions and give you a little guidance to help navigate your TAPS path a little easier. So again, thank you for joining us here today. And as we go forward, I know John encouraged to ask questions. We may not be able to answer them all, but we'll give it our best shot. Vina will be listening in later, so if you may be getting emails next week or the week after, but any emails that you have afterwards, please send them to info@taps.biz. Ask your questions here today on this opportunity on the webinar. Robert?
All right, thank you, Brian. As everybody has kind of begun to end their spring semester in their 2019-20 school year, immediately everybody started looking toward What's it going to look like next year with regard to reopening our campuses? Are we going to have a schedule change? Are we going to change the days we go to school, the hours we go to school? All those things are out there. People are having those discussions. We are still at the end of May, so there is a little time before all those final decisions are going to be made. But we have visited with a lot of our member schools about what they're thinking and how that would affect their participation in TAPS. So Brian, share some comments with our listeners about that.
We've as schools are opening or not opening, many of our schools are going to open their camps for their schools, for their lower schools, et cetera, beginning June 1st. That's next Monday. They're going to begin offering athletic opportunities or camps or bringing some teams back for conditioning, et cetera. What TAPS has said is that June 1, that goes to local control, meaning your principal, your head of school has the opportunity to determine when you will come back and in what form or fashion for training or for summer school, et cetera. So as a cheer coach, you definitely need to sit down with your administration above you and work through the details of what you can and can't do. That it's up to each school to determine whether they're going to put restrictions on how many can be in a room or when they can be there. The biggest concern that we've had so far, and I bet I've heard it from 40 or 50 cheer folks across TAPS, is what about our tryouts? We had some schools that were fortunate that they were able to conduct their tryouts prior to closing down of campuses and going virtual. We had some schools that did virtual tryouts really well. From the calls I've gotten, we've had a couple of schools that virtual tryouts didn't go quite as well. And then we have some schools that haven't done any tryouts at all. And one of the considerations right now, I think, for a lot of the cheer community is who all's coming back and who's not. We've had a lot of schools that have had a reduction in enrollment. We have some that have an increase, but a lot have a reduction. So what is my program going to look like next year is a prime concern. So what TAPS has done again is we have moved to local control. Cheer for TAPS is considered a fine art. Your school may put it under the athletic director, but for TAPS, it's a fine art. So while the athletic departments are limited to 15 contact hours per student per week, beginning next week, the cheer and dance are not. They're fine arts for us, so you are not bounded by those time limits. However, you will need to work out with your administration how many hours you can or cannot have your young men and women on campus. So, Robert?
Okay, the next slide is our kind of standard disclaimer we've had. We've conducted a lot of these webinars over the last few weeks and even months as we've walked through this process. What we just want to caution everyone is we're trying to give you helpful information from a TAPS perspective, what you can and can't do, things you need to be looking and planning for as you move through the summer and then into the fall. But by no means do our TAPS guidelines or rules ever supersede what you may be under in your local. Certainly we're all in the state of Texas, so we're under those restrictions or limitations. And as we all know, that's been a moving target. It will continue to be a moving target. We've spent a lot of our time over the last 2 months navigating that and trying to walk through that information, determine what applies to us at the school level and what doesn't. But as Brian mentioned, as we move into June 1 next week, that'll move to your local school control with regard to things you do with your squad at your campus and those kind of restrictions that we have in place. Next topic is Rank 1. Visit with us a little bit about that, Brian.
If you were with us last year, Rank 1 became the student and coach database that we're using moving forward. It was a rocky little start. We had some hurdles that became hills and some hills that became the Alps, so to speak, but we are moving forward. So we need all of the coaches and assistant coaches and that are in your cheer program to be listed in Rank 1. With cheer as one of the assignments that you have. All your assignments, if you're cheer and something else, please make sure you have those activities listed. But we also need to make sure that your email is up to date, and we need to make sure that those cell phone numbers are up to date, because that's our contact list later on as we begin moving through the year. So we'll talk about it a little bit later, but Rank 1 is the database, but it's also your coach's toolkit. More information is there, and if you need information, you can sure call the TAPS office, and Kelly and Rhonda can try to walk you through that. But when we send an email, we'll send an email push that says you have a notification in your Rank 1 toolbox and or toolkit. You need to go in there and review that. So coaches and assistant coaches, if you're part of the cheer program and you're in the administration thereof, please make sure you're listed in Rank 1 so we can communicate to you and we can make sure we have the latest up-to-date contact information.
All right, our next topic in Rank 1 is student profiles. Rank 1 is our database for all of our information, for all of our coaches, sponsors at the staff level, and then certainly for all of our students with regard to all the required forms and your eligibility status to participate in TAPS. And so just like we had last year, your parents will go in, they will either create a new profile if they're a new student to your school, or they will update their profile if they are a returning student. And that is the place where the parents answer just a couple of short questions about their student. And then they also go in and fill out the medical information that's needed, which is our next topic. We need all that information. We need their information in Rank 1 to begin with. We need them to be in there. And then we also need their health information. Before we move to health, Brian, let me remind our listeners that as you put your information in Rank 1, and you'll be adding your students to your particular roster, please make sure that before all that happens, there is someone at your school who is the person responsible to promote your students from this past school year to the next school year. Rank 1 has been conducting webinars over the past several weeks in assisting our schools to do that. So before your students and before your parents are going to be able to move into forms and profiles that are needed for the 2020 school year, someone at your school, and if you don't know who that is, somebody at your school will, is the person that needs to be promoting. It's a very simple process, but Rank 1 can help that person walk through that. Once that's done, then your parents and students will be able to go in there and update their information. Brian, visit with them about student health and what's needed in the cheer world with regard to that.
Well, one thing about Rank 1 that's important to remember is that they're going to not only complete the profile, but they're going to do their student acknowledgement of rules. That is a protective device for both the school, the coach, and TAPS. So that's a very important reason for it. Used to be a piece of paper they had to fill out. Now it's a point and click sort of thing. So, but it's a very important part of what we do. Also, part of the student profile is the student health portion. Every student will have a medical history form, but to go through that a little bit, even though cheer and dance and band or fall band are part of our fine arts department, they also, for purposes of student medical concerns, because of the performance nature, especially in the fall with the heat, et cetera, they do need to have a physical and a medical history form. So for all your young ladies and young men that are in Rank 1 and have cheer listed as their activity, whether they're actually in your performance squad or they're part of the squad that cheers at pep rallies, et cetera, if they're involved in cheer in Rank 1, then they will have to have a medical history form. This is an electronic form. The parents fill it out, but that's the same information that your school nurse or your school trainer will want to see. I had it happen to me, so I just say it's a bad time to find out somebody has a peanut allergy when you're on a bus coming back from somewhere. It's a whole lot better to know that beforehand and try to keep them away from that kind of thing. So the medical history form has cardiac questions, has concussion, has other questions that go through there. Then a student physical is required before they can participate in the fall. So that's whether they participate in TAPS or participate on your sideline. So your cheerleaders will need to have a student physical. That is a little different this year in 2020 than it was in previous years. If they have a current physical on file, it's very probable that they cannot get into their normal doctor right now to get an updated physical. So TAPS has suspended or at least delayed the requirement for student physicals to be now say they need to get one as soon as practicable and an opportunity exists. So if the student's doctor is closed until September, then obviously they wouldn't be able to go in until September to get that physical. The physical also protects you, especially in the cheer world, which is by National Federation of High Schools, ranked as a pretty dangerous opportunity as far as concussions and other injuries. So students that have had cardiac issues, that have had concussions or major injury are required to have that physical. Again, that protects the student, it protects the coach, it protects the school, and it protects TAPS. So it seems like a little onerous on the opportunity there. It takes some time, but it's there to protect all of us. And it's not just a fill in the box kind of thing. It's very important that we have that opportunity and we have those things covered in TAPS, in Rank 1. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Brian. We've got a couple of questions coming in, but before we get to those, John's got a couple of polls he's going to do for us right quick.
Yeah, we're going to answer those questions in just a second, and we're going to start talking about calendars. But before we start talking about the TAPS calendar, we'd like to know from you guys when your scheduled first day of school will be for the 2020-2021 school year. Would that be August 3rd, 10th, or the week of August 3rd, August 10th, August 17th, August 24th, or August 31st? If you don't know, go ahead and leave it blank. If the option is not there, if you're starting earlier, and we've had some schools start earlier or later, please let us know in the questions box. I'm going to leave that open for just a second. We're at about 40% voted right now. I'm going to give it about 15, 20 more seconds. We're at about 70% voted. And then I've got one more question right after this one. All right, I'm going to close this poll. Thank you, folks, for participating. The next thing we would like to know, if you know, is about your enrollment. If you could please tell us if your school's projected enrollment is forecast to increase or decrease, or if you don't know. Got about 30% voted here. Again, if you don't know, that's fine. Just say unknown. We're asking everybody. All right, I'll give this about 15 more seconds. All right, I'm going to close that poll and hand it back to Robert.
Okay, thank you, John. Thanks to everyone for assisting us in that information. That's helpful information. We will be soliciting a lot of information over the course of the summer as our schools develop plans and then give us better information to plan our activities as we move into the fall. We're going to pick up, we've had a handful of questions here. Several of them are very similar and related. Stunning. Can we stunt? Are there any restrictions or limitations on us stunning as we're doing our practices and camps throughout the summer?
I think from a TAPS perspective, it's an easy answer. We will not govern whether you can or cannot stunt. That would be local control. So that's between you and your administration. However, I would probably urge a little caution to start off with. I think we've had young men and women out of school now for 10 weeks. I think coming back and immediately going into that might be a stretch. So I think moving stunning to a little bit later, get them together and do other things first would probably be where I would start. As far as we've talked with our cheer folks, we've talked with folks that are putting on our competition. They're looking at beginning camps and doing their stuff beginning June 15. They're going to develop, so whoever's doing your choreography or whatever, as you go over there and learn your routines and your stunt routines or whatever, if you're going off-site, they may have different rules than what you have on-site, but I would definitely check with them to see what their recommendation is. As far as stunning with mask and whatever, that would be a difficult choice for me. On the one hand, you're preventing potential exposure. On the other hand, you're introducing something in like a necklace or something that I would sure hate to be an opportunity for someone to get hurt. So stunning was definitely going to be local control. Work that through with your administrators and with your athletic trainers if you have them, and whoever's going to be working with your young men and women as they develop their routines.
Here's another question. Just to be sure, are we okay to host camps and workouts on our campus even if our school is conducting summer school through an online venue?
At the present time, that would be allowed. TAPS has basically said that we have reached our summer rules, so we really don't govern summer school at the time. And so what that would be is local control as well. So if you, now, when you open your camps or whether you host your camps, that obviously needs to go through your local administration, but TAPS would have no restriction on whether or not you could or could not do that, depending on whether the school is online or not. And we'll talk about online school when we get to the fall a little bit more, but for right now in the summer, I don't see where TAPS would have a rule against that.
All right, thank you, Brian. Let's jump to our calendar and visit with our folks about as we move through the summer and then look to our fall preparations. What are some important dates and things that will be coming up?
So a couple of things that are kind of come up on the calendar. The first one is not up there, but it's Dead Week, July 26th through August the 2nd. Dead Week is for athletics. So it's for those athletes to have a week off between the end of their summer workouts and the beginning of their fall workouts and fall seasons. Since cheer is a fine art, cheer is not restricted by Dead Week. And I know a lot of our schools use that as an opportunity that if you have young ladies that are in volleyball and are also cheering, to use that opportunity to have a week of cheer without the volleyball practice being in there as well. You will sign up for cheer if you want to participate in TAPS in your contract, which is by September 1. As we go forward, I think we'll reach out as an organization, see if we can encourage others to participate. We'd love to have you there. The last date to add cheer is October 1st. Your entry deadlines, where you denote how many are on your squad and who's coming, et cetera, is October 31. We'll release that schedule on November 7th, give you an idea of what your first day's schedule will look like. And then the event date is November 16 and 17. We have secured Bell County Expo Center again. That will be, I guess, our third year there as our host. So Bell County Expo Center in Belton, Texas will be our host on November 16 and 17. As we move through the COVID situation and schools reopening and potential opportunities in the fall, right now we're still scheduled for a 2-day opportunity, but the more you know and the closer you get to it, we have had some folks want to have us consider a 1-day opportunity. We're looking at that as well. As of right now, the dates on the TAPS calendar, taps.biz, click on the word calendar and scroll across, those dates are still accurate. So entry deadline October 31 to give us the names of your squad. November 7th when we're going to release the schedule, and then we look to start performances on the morning of November 16th.
All right, before we move beyond the summer, we've got a convention coming up scheduled for July 9 and 10 in Waco at the Waco Convention Center. That is still scheduled. We are holding out hope that we can still join together and see everybody face to face and walk through our convention. We had a great convention last year. We spent almost this entire past year planning and preparing for a lot of things that will be bigger and better. We hope we're able to pull that off. If we get closer to that and realize that that's going to be too much of a challenge, we hope it's not. But if it is, and we make the decision that we can't do it in person, we will have a virtual presentation of our convention that will be available. We've been working on that, and we will have that option available. Hopefully we are able to meet July 9 and 10. There'll be a lot of great opportunities there.
So along with the convention, we met with our cheer host yesterday and our organizers. And one of the things that we want to do is move away from just in-depth discussion of the rubrics. We're not anticipating much of a change on the rubric. I don't think the points are going to change. We may change the descriptions a little bit to give you a little bit greater, clear up some of the gray area is what we discussed yesterday. But the other thing we want to do is have at least one, if not two sessions where we're going over video review of routines and indicate this is what should get you a 1 rating, or this is a high rating, this is a low rating, to help our coaches a little bit more understand our rubric. We know it's different than other rubrics, but I think I'm a visual learner, and I think being able to have that visual representation is important. And I think at the convention's a great time. Though we'll go over the rubrics, we'll go over the format. I think it's also very important that you get some affirmation you're doing it right or you're doing it different. So that's kind of what we're looking at the present time for the convention. That's July 9 and 10 in Waco, or it'll be virtually on the 9 and 10 as well.
All right, thank you, Brian. What we're going to try to do now is jump away from our presentation and jump over to the TAPS website. Let Brian kind of walk you through where on our website you can find information relevant to the cheer world.
Last year we launched the new TAPS website. It's better. Technology, as we all know, struggles at times, and as COVID has sent more and more people to the internet to do their classroom instructions, and families were kind of stuck at home, it has slowed some of our redevelopment. But if you'll go to taps.biz, click on the word Fine Arts in the black label up at the top, and then click on Cheer underneath Performing Arts. That'll be your Cheer webpage. Highly encourage you to bookmark that or go there. The TAPS rules and the National Federation rules are governing body are listed up there in the red bar next to Cheer. You can click on that and it'll take you to that link. As a reminder, from a safety perspective and a rules perspective, the National Federation rules are going to drive the safety restrictions that we have. The FAQs will be updated as we continue to get more questions. Everybody wants to know who's registered and who's coming. We may not know what tier or what division you're in, but we can definitely tell you who's coming and who's not coming as we get schools to register as we move closer to September 1 and then October 1. The honors will show last year's awards. So the three first tabs there, the Division 2, Division 1, and whatever awards will move up to honors. And then always the contact us. Championship information will be updated with the dates, times, et cetera, as we get closer. In the green on the right-hand side, and this is the most important thing I think that we've changed and we'll work hard to do this year, you will get an update through an email. You may get an update through a Rank 1 push notification, which says go check your Rank 1 toolkit. And the other thing is we're going to post those emails here. So if we send an email and communicate, it'll show up on this blog right here. So taps.biz, click on Fine Arts, click on Cheer, and then the green words on the right-hand side will be the updated webinar. Well, if you scroll down just a hair, the rubrics and progressions and deductions are there. It kind of gives you an outline of what we're looking to do and how we're looking to do it. And again, I think we'll have a good opportunity come July 9 and 10 to have some visual presentations there that will show you what is and what isn't, or what is a deduction, what's not, how to avoid it, etc. The other important part over there on the right-hand side is where it says Tweets by TAPS Cheer. So if you're doing the social media, or please hook up your social media folks with TAPS Cheer. So as your cheer squads are tweeting out information or performances or whatever, we want to help promote you as well. So include TAPS Cheer and everything you do there. One thing that's showing up there, and it's just on my mind right now, is the mascot competition. The mascot competition last year got better and better. So it was the best one yet. So we look forward to increasing opportunities there as well. So as we talk about the opportunities here in a minute, remember that mascot competition, and we'll have some very defined opportunities there as well.
All right, thank you, Brian. Our next, we'll jump back to our presentation. Our next topic is going to be a cheer overview. Visit with our folks about what they sign up for, what groups, what tiers, what divisions, based on the squad they have and what they want to try to accomplish.
So TAPS Cheer is different than cheer in the rest of the world. It is based on your school size, your classification, whether you're a 1A or a 5A or 6A. The more schools we have, the more opportunity we have to split that out between those classifications. Right now, we basically have a division 1 and 2 like we did last year, with the 5A, 6As on one side and the 1, 2, 3, and 4s on the other, creating the categories. Small squad was 16 or less, large squad was 17 or more for both of those. And then the Spirit division, and we can divide the Spirit division like we did last year in between large and small schools based on participation. So the more folks that come, the more we can split it out. We sure look to do that. And based on participation, we reserve the right to split or combine those. The problem is, until we get everybody in that October 1, as we move back forward then to October 31, it's hard to make those final schedules and those final divisions opportunities until we actually get the information from you. So the sooner we know, hey, I'm going to be performing as a small squad or a large squad, we already know your classification size, then we can make additional decisions based on that. And we will look at that and we will change as best as possible. So basically we will have Division 1, we'll have the large and small, Division 2, large and small, and the Spirit. If we can do large and small there as well. We really were encouraged last year by the Spirit squad, the number of schools that came in the performances. Overall, we felt like we just had a great competition. We appreciate everybody that came. Additionally, we were providing that Division 1 opportunity. So if your school performed to a certain level, though your school was ranked, you also had the opportunity to get a Division 1 judges critique. So as we go forward, we see no changes in that, and we'll have more information on that at the July convention.
Okay, our next topic is judging. Visit with our folks a little bit about what they're looking to do and prepare for in terms of how their particular performance is judged?
Again, our TAPS host will develop the judging panel. It'll be judged. You'll do 2 routines, a day 1 and a day 2. Part of the day 1 is the clinician time, is the review time in the back where we go over. We'll have a judge there with you this year to walk through. You'll also have recorded comments on your performance to tell you what we have is that same time, how you did or how you didn't do. So you'll have that opportunity to correct or to change as needed. But the judges will have the judges panel and we'll go forward. The judges have been instructed and will continue to be instructed on the TAPS rules. It's hard if you're judging in another organization to then come back and change rules, but take it from us. We've done it every year. We'll continue to try to have the best judge education possible. And I do believe that at the convention, and then we'll have some webinars as we move forward into August and September, where we hope to do that same thing, show a clip and then discuss what the judges' thoughts were on it. So that's kind of where we are on judges. They'll be provided by our host. They'll be of the industry and in the high school industry. So we'll move forward at that point.
Okay, our next topic is summer practices. You touched on that a little bit earlier. Just give a little recap of what the expectations and limitations are for practices for our cheer squads during the summer.
Basically, your practices are going to be restricted by your local control. So the local control opportunities as we go forward is between you and your administration. We believe that from the TAPS perspective, again, we do limit 15 hours a day for the how am I trying to say this, Robert? 15 hours a day for the athletic side, or 15 hours a week rather, contact hours. You have the contact hours as you need them. As you return, I think it's very important that you have a protocol. Each school is going to have a protocol for what it looks like when you return to the classroom. I think you also need to have that protocol for what it's going to look like when you return to any practice opportunity, whether it be athletics or fine arts. So our cheerleaders need to have that opportunity. Summer practices, again, are not limited as far as time of the week, so you can do as you see best with your, so for lack of a better word, with your administration. I will tell you that the CDC guidelines as far as travel are pretty restrictive. One of the last things I saw was you're going to have 1 student per seat on the bus and you're going to skip a row. By the time you do that, you take a 53 passenger bus and you can get 25, or if it's a 10 passenger van, you get 4. So obviously go through that with your school. And as you're preparing, I think that it's very important that you have a plan in place for what happens if someone on your squad comes down with COVID-19, or if whether they're symptomatic or not, whether the test is positive. So one of the things that we have read over and over, and it's a recommendation, it's definitely not a rule, is if you can keep your pods or squads separate. If you have a squad of 15 and all those are together, then they're considered one group, and if one gets sick, they're all out. If you can separate them and say, hey, here's 5 here, here's 5 there, here's 5, and they don't intermingle a lot, then you may be able to keep going with the other 2 squads while the first one is in peril. So again, can you have camps? That's between you and your head of school. What's the operating protocol there? Are you going to take their temperature, or are you going to ask them to sign a waiver? Get with your athletic department, make sure athletics and fine arts are following the same protocol. And then obviously we want to protect there's a lot of discussion on protecting our students right now, but we also want to protect you, the coaches. So make sure if you have underlying medical conditions that you're well versed and well read on the opportunities and the protection you need, whether it be mask, whether required, or gloves. But especially if you're compromised, or if you have an situation that might compromise you, please make sure that you're taking care of you and your staff as well.
While we're on that topic, let's jump in here and pick up a question. I'll take this one, Brian. I've heard no locker rooms. Can we use the regular bathrooms during our summer camp? That is a local control issue. What has been recommended by the UIL, the NFHS, and other organizations is that for summer training and workout practices, that you not allow students and athletes to use the locker room and the shower areas. Those are common areas that we all understand. It would be hard to limit contact in those areas, but obviously students are going to have to go to the restroom, and some of those may be located in areas that may be in or adjacent to those. That's a local control issue. You figure that out with regard to your facility, get with your school leadership, have that protocol, have that plan in place for how it's going to be used. Make sure all your staff and students understand how they're to use it, what they're to do. Part of your protocol will obviously include cleaning and sanitizing those areas before, during, and after. That's a local issue that, given your school, your resources, your staffing, and your facilities, that you walk through that and make sure that you have a plan in place and that everybody that's involved in that knows those protocols, and somebody's making sure that that occurs.
I think the big consideration of locker rooms is how big is it and how many do you let in at a time? And, you know, obviously you don't want to go through all the distancing protocols outside and then you shove them all in a small room, and that you've kind of defeated that purpose. The other thing is to make sure that if you are, as a school, using those locker rooms, that you have a sanitation protocol in place. And that's probably going to be kept true of the whole school. But right now, TAPS would have nothing against that. When you go back and you look into going back, slow is better than fast. I think we need to take a great big step back, and I hope you can plan a couple of days of reorientation. I know students are hungry to come back, and we're hungry to get them back, and you're hungry to get them back. But I think it's very important that we walk through step by step. I think that's a very important thing. And again, personal protective equipment for you and for your students is at your own discretion. But please remember as well, towels. Please remember water bottles, and I think our cheer groups are really good about you bring your own stuff, and we don't commingle. Everybody has their own bag. But again, I've been a girls coach for many years. It was basketball, but a girls coach many years. You can't share water bottles, and for some reason that was always a struggle for me on the bench or at practice. Is I've got a bottle, you don't, or what do you run out? Another thing is to make sure that you have some plan in place. If you have an ATC, a trainer, make sure you understand what to do in the event of injury, what to do. I mean, you know, it almost takes on more of a situation here, especially if you had a blood spill or cleanup or whatever. So I don't mean to be negative there, but make sure that you understand what your ATC's protocols are in that situation. There were a couple of questions here that deal with the bylaws. So if you go to taps.biz, the word in the black bar at the top says bylaws. You scroll down to cheer, it says what are the time limits. Those time limits are listed in the TAPS bylaws. So you'll go to taps.biz, you'll click on the big word up at the top that says bylaws. You're going to scroll all the way down the bottom to section 260. It's going to take a little bit to load. It's a big document, but that's where you get the actual time limits, etc. Another question, Robert, that came out was, will there be consideration of breaking into small, medium, and large? Again, the more schools we have participate and each size situation, the more consideration we can give. However, we are different from the rest of the cheer world. We do not have a novice group. We do not have a JV group. We have basically, this is our squads represent each school. We've had JVs come in the past. But the other side of that, as far as squads, our board of directors, your board of directors, made up of men and women from across the state of Texas and all sizes from 1A to 6A, have determined that the meaningful competition has to be there. So if splitting squads and you got 6 as a small and you have 2 mediums and 5 larges, I don't know that our board is going to support having a competition between 2 squads. So as it stands right now, we have small and large. The question was, are we bound to small and large? At the present time, by the bylaws, we are. However, if our entries dictate that we could break those out a little bit more, we will surely look to do that. Does that make sense, Robert? Does I explain it kind of the way you see it? Or
Yes, and this is not unique to cheer. We have many other activities, even some of our sports, where the participation numbers have to be significant enough to have a big enough group to have a meaningful championship. So as Brian mentioned, as we grow these programs, get more schools and more squads involved, certainly we hope to have those opportunities.
Encourage your neighbors to come participate. If they play, you get to play, and we get to split it out a little bit farther if necessary. As we move off of the summer practices, there is a lot of information out there that is warning of a COVID return in the fall. So we do know that we have schools right now. Some are planning an in-person school week Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and a virtual school week Tuesday, Thursday. We have some that are going to do 1 week of virtual and 1 week of in class. We have some people going to say no change from what we've always done. We're coming every day. We have some schools that are already planning on starting in July and then planning some long breaks along the like a mid-fall break, a Thanksgiving break, extending their Christmas and spring breaks. So those are all out there. Your school may do that, or they may do something totally different. The big thing about COVID in the fall is if your school is shut down or your squad is shut down because of a COVID virus infection or a positive rate or a hospitalization, then of course you couldn't get together as a squad, nor would you probably want to if you have somebody that's actively infected. However, if your school is just going through one of those pre-planned or a planned shutdown to go to virtual or whatever, it's between you and your school as to whether or not you can have practice or not. In my position as principal, you could look at that and say, look, if we're shut down because of COVID, we're not going to have in-person practices. But if we're shut down because it was just a pre-planned, we're going virtual this week, or we're going to have an extended break, I think practice would still be allowed in my school. But that's between you and your opportunity. A question came up earlier this year, and it's come up in everything. It started back when in March, was what if we can't make it? What if we have something that says we can't make it, or if there was an outbreak or whatever? We are exploring virtual options. Of course, it's always better in person, but we are exploring the virtual option as well. Not there yet. We're not to that point where we're ready to say, hey, this is what's going to happen and make it happen. But we definitely have plans in place in the event we need them. So just kind of COVID in the fall, we're here. Drop us an email at info@taps.biz. Always encourage your athletic director, fine art director, head of school. They can call as well. We will walk you through as much as we can when we know something. I think the hardest part of our job this last few weeks has been to say, I don't know. It's not in my nature. It's not in our staff. We want to provide you with as many answers, but Governor Abbott makes changes on a pretty much daily, weekly basis about what is open and what's not. So we're going to do our best to interpret and to help educate you as we move forward. Robert?
All right, thank you. We're going to jump to a little bit different presentation here. Y'all probably tired of hearing me and Brian talk. So we've got some highlights that our staff has put together from our event last year. And while you're looking at this, if you have any other questions, we're going to be getting close to the end of our presentation. Just type those in and we'll try to get to those before the end.
Let's go with jumper number 2. How about it, jumper number 3? Let's go with jumper number 4. And jumper number 5. First, we'll have a big round of applause for our finalists. Here on the judge's right, tumbler's left. All 5 of you are going to tumble from that corner. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then we'll let you know who's moving on to the final round. Your best pass, number 1. Number 2, same corner. Number 2, same corner. Same corner, Robert. Number 3.
All right, thank you so much. Got a couple of questions. If you have any more, shoot those to us right quick. We're kind of to the question and answer portion and conclusion of our presentation. Here's a question: how's football season looking? Well, for all of us here in the TAPS office and for all of our football coaches and players out there, we're all hopeful that we can get started. Obviously, starting next week on June 1, we've had restrictions released enough that we can go back to doing some summer training and workouts. So that seems to be where things are moving in our state and around the country. We hope that remains the same. Right now, our calendar remains the same for the summer and through the fall. If that changes, certainly we'll let you know, but we're all optimistic that we can get back into school, get back into our fall activities. Here's another question. It's a great question. What's the best way to handle overlapping seasons? For instance, volleyball, basketball, soccer, etc. And those who might also be in cheer and have those responsibilities that overlap with those seasons. That's a great question. I came from a middle-sized to smaller school. We had a lot of our athletes and our students that participated in athletic and fine art activities, and they juggled a lot of seasons going from one to next, and they juggled being in two things at the same time. Those are certainly things that need to be discussed at the administrative level with your athletic directors, with your school administrators, so that the coaches involved, so that the students and the parents involved who are juggling those things understand what the schedules are, what the requirements are, what the expectations are, when one might take a little priority over the other because it's game day or because they're preparing for their event. Those are all things that schools will handle differently. So visit with your school administrators about that. Make sure that there's a great plan in place, that all the stakeholders that are involved in that participate in that and understand what the expectations are.
I think it's also a great opportunity for our July convention to have a breakout session for those that want to talk. Those of you that done it successfully, love to have you come talk to those, maybe in a panel discussion. How can we integrate our program when we're having to share athletes across all things? The other part of that I want to say just real quick, it didn't come out earlier, is I think you need to prepare some flexibility for the fall. If COVID-19 or another reason comes back and shuts you down, et cetera, understand that in that situation right there, I'm pretty sure the volleyball and football schedules will pretty well dictate what the young men and women those programs are doing, and they may change. I don't see football going to more than one game a week, but obviously volleyball could go to 3 if the school desired. In that situation, the struggle is going to be what that does to your practice time and what that does to your availability of squad members. We had a question on how the sizes of squads. So Division I, if you go to taps.biz, click on the bylaws, scroll down to section 260, part A right there, 1A, the squad sizes, it's 16 or less are small squad, 17 or more are large, and the Division I, they're all listed there. Section 260 of the TAPS bylaws. We're not anticipating any changes there. Obviously, once we come back and we see what our squad sizes are with your applications and with your entries, we would be able to look and see if there's any changes that might be possible. But at the present time, the numbers we're going for are Section 260 of the TAPS bylaws, outlines where that is. And again, questions that need a little more information, we definitely would want to go ahead and help you there. Info, I-N-F-O at TAPS, TAPPS.biz. We can definitely get that. Vina can give you a pretty good answer as it comes back, and then we can as well. We're hoping for Vina to be back on her feet. She's caught a little illness, but she's coming back soon, and she'll be able to answer that, as will our TAPS cheer host. Are we allowed to hold a summer camp in your gym? Obviously, we're not at each school. We have 225 member schools, so it's local control. TAPS rules would not preclude you doing that. And as we go back through and we read what Governor Abbott has said here in Texas and the Texas Education Agency has published, we believe those are possibilities, and you can certainly explore those with your administration. As a fine art as well, I think that if you want to hold a summer camp, definitely make sure that whatever camp provisions you have, they would be in keeping with whatever athletic provisions, or if someone's holding a computer camp or whatever, make sure all of your protocols are in the same general vein. So local control, if you want to do it, I hope you get to have it. If you haven't gone to camp, if you're planning going to camp in June or July, we're really hoping that you can get to go do that. We know that some schools are pushing their camp dates far back into July. We'll have our rubrics updated with everything by June the 15th. Don't see a lot of changes in the points, but maybe, like I said, clear up a little of the gray area. So as the rules are written right now, it's up to your school to determine whether you're going to allow students in the gym or on the field and use the weight room or use any equipment at all. So if you're rolling out your cheer mats, et cetera, that's a local control. We do not have a rule saying no. You definitely need to roll back and look and make sure that the rules that are governing your institutions have that. I will tell you, if you roll out your cheer mats, you're going to have a protocol of how you're going to sanitize them. make sure that that's in there as well. If you couldn't share megaphones, and be careful with your, I know you may not be doing that yet, but as you come back, this might be the year that we're a little more guarded. I say that, but make sure that protocol for cleaning is there, and as we move forward. So again, we love having cheer as part of what we do. It's been a great addition to our opportunities. It's been a great opportunity for young women and young men to excel and give the gifts that God has given them and show those to the world. I think that we'll continue to put our efforts behind what we can do and make it better. And at the same time, we're going to continue with the format as we have right now. We're pretty consistent. We feel like we have a plan. If you want to come and you have no idea, give us a call, 254-947-9268, 254-947-9268. Let us help walk you through. We also, I want to send a shout out to those people that are on our cheer committee, and we'll have those published. Great job by the cheer committee getting us to where we are in the field and with their own squads, and developing our plans to help move forward, and always there to be mentors and answer questions as people come in. So again, 3 big things for us as we conclude this today. Make sure you got your information in rank 1 so that we can get information to you. Number 2, make sure you get your student information in rank 1 so we can get the information we need there. And third thing is, if you've got questions, please reach out to us. We're here to try to help as best we can. If we don't know the answer immediately, we can surely get it for you quickly. Robert, do we have any more questions before we move on, or are we?
That's all I see so far. Like Brian said, if you have others or think of others later, reach out to us here in the TAPS office. That'll conclude our presentation. John, we'll pass it back to you.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Will, and everybody in the TAPS office for helping out today. That concludes our webinar. Couple of things. The recording will be available later this afternoon. It takes us a little time to process it. It's going to be on the TAPS YouTube page. That's youtube.com/tapsbiz. You're going to get a link to that in the follow-up email that will come from GoToWebinar about an hour after this webinar concludes. A couple of other things we want to plug. TAPS has a podcast, and the next episode is about the TAPS cheer competition. It's TAPS Talk. The episode will be out next week, and I see some of the people that we interviewed for that are in the webinar with us today, so hi again. You can find that on Spotify or anywhere you get podcasts, so Apple Podcasts, or you can also look on our website, taps.biz/talk. All the episodes are posted there, and you can listen. If you're interested in participating in future episodes, just send us an email, but the cheer one will be out next week. A couple other things. Brian mentioned our social media. TAPS Cheer, @TAPS Cheer is our handle on Twitter. The Twitter algorithm kind of hides things from you. So the best way for us to see the content that you guys are doing is if you tag us, that's including our username in your tweets, and then we can retweet those and like those and kind of spread the story of our cheer programs a little bit. We always like seeing that. And also, if you didn't catch the cheer championships on TAPS Rewind the last couple of weeks, those are still on YouTube. You'll look for the playlist that says TAPS Rewind, and you'll see both days of the cheer competition, this last one, all available there for you to watch again for free. So if you didn't see that, or if your team didn't see that, you can share that with them. Thank you, folks, for being with us today. Again, if you have any other questions or if something occurs to you later, just send us an email, info@taps.biz. We'll get those answers to you. Thank you for spending part of your Thursday with us, and we hope to see you in the fall.